Hello again, and welcome back to the Campfire. This episode is going to be a little different than the last ones, as we're instead just going to be discussing stuff that's happened over the campaigns that I've played, or current campaigns that we are currently playing alongside my guest. Alex.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes.
You.
Very good actually. Uh, yeah, a little bit intimidating because I'm gonna have to talk about Toxie and my character Warhead, in our other campaign that we don't stream. Uh, we had a little trouble recording earlier, so
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Discord loves to play up.
it's like, also I felt that Warhead was kind of I've had a lot of like difficulties with Warhead, in terms of my development of the character and like playing as the power combustion, where I explode things and use my power in various ways for that.
Well,
Because it's not really my wheelhouse.
it's to sort of like backpedal a bit. The war campaign is set in a country where about 20 or 30 years after powers are suddenly a large abundance within the world, people start trying to either use it to protect people or they try and use it to overthrow governments, and basically a large war incurs between two factions. However, during the war, there's then supposed to be something that doesn't actually happen in the normal backstory. It's supposed to be sort of an alternate timeline campaign where instead another country is actually brought into it, and because of this, the two-sided factions are now three-side factions. Um, inside of the party is supposed to be at least one person from each area or faction, and your character comes from the chain, the people who believe that powers are supposed to be the very thing that creates status. You don't get your status from birth unless if you're born into actual physical power. Um, and Warhead's power was combustion manipulation. But would you like to talk about a little bit about like the journey of the first sort of, I guess, the sort of the first part of your character creation process?
Well, it was just I wanted to like break out of my comfort zone a bit, which is never a good idea for me usually because I end up being kind of like lost, I think, where I wanted to create a character who was, powerful offensively. Usually I'm a utility user and I like all my different powers and I'm mostly either support or defense. I just thought, well, all these other people are like got huge offensive characters. Maybe I should create a character that is about offense and it just has a bit of a complex because of that. But and it was like I was supposed to be this legendary um, you know, hero in the chain. Well, not a hero in the chain, just a legendary soldier. I get to like, incredibly high level because of how powerful I was. But I tried, yeah, I just didn't really play him like that. Like it just sort of changed. It just didn't really fit for like in the situation and also in like just my comfort zone, if you know what I mean. It's like and there was just a lot of situations that I didn't use my powers or my powers didn't work, and it was just sort of like, oh, like I've been overhyped,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And yeah, it just ended up involving I was just sort of like, well, I don't know if I like Warhead. For a lot of times it's like I don't know if I like playing this character. It just doesn't really I just don't really know how to use him or like where it's going,
I think that's
But I yeah, sorry,
no,
go on.
as a narrator or as a DM, I think that's a problem that a lot of players I see a lot of players do this often. Is there will be a time where a character sort of outlives their intrigue or interest to a player, and a lot of the time that really comes down more to the actual like concept of that character. What was the thing of that character? What was the main concept of that character that first intrigued them? I see this a lot with a lot of different players. It wasn't just you. This was, this was obvious to me as soon as you started playing them differently than how you had set them out originally. Like as you said, the legend of them was supposed to be this great warrior with a short temper, and was never really asked people for anything. Instead, just took or attacked until people gave it up, and turning that into this character that seemed rather mild mannered, soft, very rarely ever got gave into any kind of emotional anger, hatred, rage, any kind of like spite or anything like that, uh, and pretty much seemed more like as if everything about them was actually, as you said, overhyped. So the way that we did it was we actually retconned it, and it's like all of the stuff that you had actually said about your character was only like a false a falsehood of the original truth, that they enjoyed fighting, they enjoyed the exhilaration that comes with a fight, but they didn't enjoy starting one. They didn't enjoy using their powers to completely devastate opponents. No, they enjoyed using their powers to completely devastate opponents, but they didn't enjoy it looking for a fight or looking for an opponent to fight. They didn't enjoy using their powers against civilians. And instead of a mild mannered, instead of like short tempered, their mild manners was just the fact that they had powers that allowed them to defend themselves by making their body like explosive, meaning that as soon as they got hit by damage, an explosion would happen and be sort of spiteful. So it was all these different ways that sort of like created this thing of, oh, I just want to make sure that if I'm getting hit, someone else is getting hurt, or oh, I'm just using it for the last line of defense so that I don't get killed. But everyone else sees it as, oh man, they're so angry that they will never allow them to die without the person that hits them at least taking something back. And it turned into this whole thing where we just said the legend behind them is their power and prowess was definitely there, but it's the attitude that everyone misinterpreted.
Yeah. I think that's more sort of, I mean, it was a retcon, but yeah, it makes more sense really for where I did. I feel more comfortable playing them now because of that. It's like, because yeah, it is just like more interesting that way. I think it all ca culminated in the final ability that that you let me have for my superpower martial arts, which you called Dirty Bomb, which I
Yes,
think
yes.
is like, I mean, it's a real good thing. I've got it's like an extension of a power I had, which is Infectious Blast, where basically I blast people, and because of another power that I have where I can make people into living bombs, I can basically just hit them with explosion, and that also hits them with this ability that turns them into a living bomb. So if they get an injury or if they don't roll a high enough constitution, they have another explosion inside of them. And basically, what we did was we have this master ability where, I get 3 times the amount of damage for a regular blast, make it a huge blast. It's just an AoE of everything around me getting like going up in a nuclear explosion. And then after that, they're also infected with the blast. And so, but if they figure so low, if any of them survive, anyone in my radius survives, they still have to deal with the possibility of exploding again. And so it's like, and it's dirty. It just feels dirty. And I like, the flavor you put out as well, like in the last session we did, where I just, Warhead just feels dry and kind of literally feels dirty, after using it. It's just like I just cannot get clean because there's like because it is cool, and like there was this whole thing of like you made me roll a willpower, and it's like kind of thinking like, yeah, I did enjoy doing that. I'm impressed that I managed to do this incredibly high attack that completely decimates someone, and it was just very funny. I mean, none of our characters actually saw it, but you played it out as well of the person I was trying to completely destroy actually did survive the first blast and was just monologuing, but then their rib broke and then they just exploded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So thus, like, oh. Which is like it's great. I was just like, really sort of like really happy there because everyone was kind of thinking, oh, it wasn't enough. And I'm like, it's not over yet. It's never over. And yeah, I think that kind of like exemplifies uh Warhead in my mind. It's sort of like, they're acutely aware that there is something dirty about this. There's like this. I think they've sort of grown from like, the chains principles of like there's something really sort of honorable and good and like necessary about what they're doing, but it's like, yeah, no, sometimes the person who wins is the person who, does the dirty tricks, who fights dirty
Yeah, yeah.
and just outpowers someone. And they're just like aware of that, and there is no honor in that. So you might as well just use these powers to not commit genocide. That's like the big thing. It's like, yeah, there's nothing truly redeeming about using these powers, so you better make sure that you use them for the right cause.
So far, what I've noticed about your sudden like for Warhead is more because that they're not only like obviously the obvious one that I could say is, oh, it's because that you now have an ability that makes you very powerful, but I actually say
Mhm.
the other one is, the other part to that is also like you've got more of a believable personality for Warhead now. So like the thing that a lot of people always think of is with roleplay, you have to play as someone who's completely different to yourself, or you have to make a different voice or anything. No, you do not. No, you do not. Even if that person what acts exactly like you do in real life, cool, fine, okay, that works. Because either way, there is at least going to be one or two things that your character can do, no matter what game you're playing, that you can't. Even if your role playing is like, oh, my character acts exactly like how I would act. Okay, how would you act if you could summon fire from your hands? Like, like there's never going to be like the perfect way to roleplay it. I know that there's so many people who are like, oh no, you have to completely play as a different player or anything like that. You don't have to do that. Even further, if someone chooses to do that, where they want to play a character with a silly voice or they want to play a character of an opposite species, race, or gender, they are allowed to do that. That is 100% fine, and I've never said anything against anyone to do so. Um,
I don't know what you're talking about.
and that's exactly it. Like you've played as a couple of characters, and the only character that you've ever had that actually did have a different voice. I guess technically two, which was you played as Aspen, who had a high pitched Mickey Mouse like voice,
Yeah.
and then you played as Irving, who was always kind of gristly and I don't know what we should do here. Perhaps I should scout ahead. Uh,
It's just
everything's a
yeah,
pain.
I guess I don't. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, Aspen was kind of like my first uh big sort of character, I guess. I wouldn't say that because he wasn't they weren't my first character, but they were first sort of like really sort of exploring the powers and the possibilities of the game, and like that turned out to be like one of the best games that you've ever done, I think,
I
is the
think you
HCs there.
random rolled your first ever character, and with Aspen you chose.
That was it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, it was like the first where I was like choosing of like, okay, this is like I've got some agency here. Whereas like I'm not just sort of making it up on the fly. With Dr. Satine, well, there was a bit of quite a lot of me just mucking about and like playing this sort of like this sarcastic bard devil character. I was sort of like, well, that's fun, but I'm kind of just, waking it up on the fly. With Zaspen, I had a definite plan. I mean, so much of a definite plan. I gave you like so many pages of things to do with Aspen, and I apologize. I really apologize. I do this. It's not just you. I just want to say it's not just you that I message at 3 in the morning. Okay. Coin unfortunately has had this from me
It's
too.
it's also not just you that has messaged me at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I also say this. I actually quite like it when someone has a very large backstory that is constantly being retroactively added throughout the campaign,
Mhm.
to give the characters motive and change. What I will not ever allow is if someone has a backstory that specifically keeps granting them things. I've had that once or twice. The biggest one was a character who said that they had a partner in a large city that was technologically advanced, and they were like the owner of this massive cybernetics shop, and that they could always send them cybernetics to them for free constantly. And I was just like, this
Mm.
is retroactively being put in each and every single session. You're adding more things that they can do. At this point, it is the equivalent of just making up new abilities on the fly, um, and making up new rules for yourself. And I never like that. The most that I ever like is if you're going to create something, there has to be a relative large downside, as I've said before in previous things. Phileas, oh, I have this unlimited credit card because I stole it from my character's dad. My character's dad stole it from, like whatever. And he's like, oh, his character stole it from his dad or whatever. And it's like he's now being chased by the family like mercenary, to literally bring him back, and pretty much answer for what he's done. And then it's like, oh, I could be the next great hero. Yeah, only if you beat him. And the dad is like the most powerful guy in the world, and it's like his entire journey is supposed to be this final lead up to this guy who may very well never be beaten. Um, and like that's the most amount of stuff that I would ever do. If someone wanted to have free stuff, there'd have to be a cost to it. Whereas like a lot of the time with stuff like with Irving and Aspen, the characters that you've done, as well as Warhead, and now with Toxie, you've done stuff that affect your character's backstory and add maybe new possibilities in the world, rather than just you get free stuff because of it. Um,
Yeah.
and I like that. I know that there's a lot of DMs that also really dislike this when someone's backstory can give them free stuff without any downsides or any drawbacks or any particular prices to pay. So instead, it's stuff that will add to the story, rather than just mechanically make them better. Um, so it's one of the reasons why I like your characters, and why I like the current campaign's load of characters for the for the villain campaign that you guys are currently doing.
I love the villain campaign. I
As
just want to say this is like if anybody would like, I love the villain campaign so much. I just like the drama that's developing as well as what as a I guess that is sort of like the essence of a good campaign as well. It's like even when we fail, it's still thrilling.
yes, yes,
It's like it's all good. It's like yeah, and I just love the new possibilities of like the drama with Talos and Toxie, the sudden ascension of of Juice
yes,
and
yes,
Bartholomew, into God fighter status. And yeah, I love Leah as well. It's like that was so funny. That was just so funny when Talos chose the money over, because there was a part of me that was like saying, like please let him take the money. That'll be so funny. Like he just abandon his comrades and take the money. That's so what I would do. Not me, the character Toxie, I will have to say. I don't abandon my friends in pocket dimensions.
Well, that's exactly one of the funniest things about it, is because that like in this is another thing that I wanted to get to, because I'm your DM, I am your narrator, and you're one of my players. For the playtesting sessions that we do for this game, so that we can build it up. But it is not only just a game that we're playtesting; it is also a game that we're enjoying and going through, and it's a
Mhm.
story that we're all trying to tell together. And as one game master to a player, in front of all possibilities of game masters and players, whoever may or may not watch this, it is so important for communication. But even more so, it is so important that your characters convey a specific level of their own, I'm going to now say, personality logic. So many people in the group have said, "Oh man, that's really harsh. That's really horrible of you to do this," and you're like, "Well, yeah, Toxie is a toxic personality. They are not only just a villain, they are a very bad person. They don't necessarily have a lot of friends because they've dicked everyone over. They are spiteful. A guy punched them in the face during a tournament and beat them in 2 hits. That doesn't matter. They now have put them on a list of things that they are going to do to them, either by ruining their life or attempting to beat them/kill them later. there are many different personality traits that not only Toxie has shown. For instance, Talos, he's thinking, well, I don't need Vale anymore, and Arsenal either. We have a junkie and pretty much a guy who stole my car that I had already stolen myself, and also a guy who, yes, led us, but I didn't really see any value in a guy who literally got sucked up into his own portal and can't get out. So that's the logic behind obviously the character, not necessarily the player, because obviously like I've heard Bill say a couple of times, uh, we could really have done with that shadow guy, that is shadow manipulation and being able to teleport through darkness. We could also really have done with the pocket dimension, but it doesn't make sense for Talos to suddenly care about this guy when he like they've never really had too much of a conversation. Like he's with you guys because he's with the team. He's not with you because of a specific person. Um, and that is exactly why it's so important for characters to have a specific personality. It's why we don't have
Mhm.
alignments, because that we have likes, dislikes, vices, virtues, fears, and obsessions. It's all to create a personality. It's all to have this function, because you could change your personality, or you could change your way of which that you are specifically aligned. Like you could be a good person for a long time and then suddenly change and be someone who would kick someone down whilst they're already trying to get back up from the last time they got down. You could be a person who has always been this really evil person who always does things selfishly, but then you actually are taking things from people who you believe don't deserve it and trying to give back to the people who are deserving of it, or who you believe are deserving of it. You change and alter your perception of good and evil constantly, regardless of whether or not you're a hero or a villain. And you can have a purely evil or purely good character, but your personality would very much dictate how you constantly are forever being. For instance, with Toxie, it's maybe the vice of always looking out for number one. Obsession is getting whatever you want, and revenge for those who have ever messed with you. Likes could very much be seeing the effects of your poison negatively affect others. Dislikes may very well be being shown up, and fears might actually be powers not working or something else. It's really dependent on the way that a character is built, and
I must
I
I
think you
must
convey
say
it
it's
well.
like,
No, go on.
oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. That's really I'm trying really hard, Toxie, because it's like, I'll be honest with you. I will say this, in terms of like, Warhead, like, yes, I have got a really powerful ability, but I was warming up to Warhead before that. And I'm just saying, I'm not, it's not sort of like, oh yeah, I've got like a super ability. It's like I was liking him more before that, just in case, people were wondering. But it's like with Toxie, it's like, yeah, I do sort of like have a little bit more warmth towards Toxie because they're so petty, and because it's like it's just funny to me, and it's like indulging in like I mean, I wouldn't say that Toxie is a self-insert, but there is like a bit of my dark side in Toxie, I
It's
think.
relatable.
It's like, yeah, it's relatable because it's like it's not sort of like, haha, have the darkness of my soul, and like I'm going to, be bad because, of this organization of for ultimate power. It's like, no, you annoyed me, and therefore you must die, which is like, it's it's funny in how petty it is, but also like, yeah, you can definitely meet people who are like that, who would just like completely ruin someone's life, it not with superpowers, but like even with the tiniest things, like, doxing them, or like, like spreading rumors about people, that you dislike, just because they annoyed you or offended you in some way. That's like, that is a relatable, like, we all know something that's happened in real life like that, where some complete asshole has completely screwed someone over because of like some petty beef. And it's just funny to see that with someone with, like, a superpower. who has the power to like literally poison people and poison everything around them. That's just like a concept that I've been wanting to play with for a while, and it's just fat. It's just oh, it's good to do it.
It's very
It's just
cathartic.
yeah, it's like yeah, you irritate me, and it's like to be fair though, I did actually have like like the whole thing with Mercury. Like, if it was me, the character, I would have accepted that handshake of like, oh yeah, there was no point. But it's like, no, this is Toxie. I have to put him on the list. I
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
It almost killed me to do it, but it's like, well, guess this guy has to die.
Well, it's the exact same
Because
thing
that's
with Sam, because obviously when Sam was playing as Vale, he did do something very stupid, which was he went into a gravity well to put his portal in it because he was like, oh, I'm going to try and do this really cool, funny thing and make a mockery of this fight. But he then got sucked up, and he in and out of character did not know that it does not only physical but spatial damage, and he is immune to physical when he's in his dark form, but he's not when he's not immune to spatial. And so tore him apart, ripped him apart, and threw him back in his own portal as well as threw the guy into the portal, and it damaged him and knocked him out. And because that it constantly will keep the same cycle of whatever state that you went in is the exact state that you're staying, or at least you'll be constantly reverted back to. So since he's unconscious, he will probably stay unconscious forever. But a lot of people gave him crap for that, saying, "Oh, you didn't pay attention, you didn't listen, you didn't know what kind of damage it did." To be fair, how would he if he's never seen the attacks being dealt on anything other than regular stuff that would always be affected by physical as well as spatial? Like, I think that's a perfect point of metagaming to just be, he first of all, he didn't know anyway, so yes, that is silly, but that is the perfect form of not knowing if a power does or doesn't work, because metagaming can sometimes poison it. That you will
Mhm.
try and play as this character, and then you're like, oh, I'm not going to use this ability. Why not? Because I know that he'll reflect it. But you don't know he can reflect it yet. Well, your character doesn't, but you might actually know because of a previous time that another person's character did. And it then becomes this very annoying thing of like, well, your character knows stuff that they wouldn't know because they didn't see it happening or anything like that. And it kind of becomes a bit, well, meta. It no longer is about like role playing, it's literally about being people on a board rolling dice, and just that's it. And I think obviously part of any kind of tabletop game is half of it is the imagination as almost the game engine, if you will. Um, so I say Sam not knowing is not his fault because that his character didn't see it happen, and
Yep.
Sam not paying attention actually helped him kind of get out of that out of that jail free card sort of
Well,
situation.
there's one thing that I mean, the thing that's great about Sam is that in every game that he does, he's always very natural. I think he's just, in the moment, and in character, doing these things and just doing things stuff like which gets him into so much trouble, whether it's like exploding himself via his kobold character or getting himself trapped in a pocket dimension by knocking himself out. But it's like you can't ever say about Sam that he's inauthentic. He's always authentic, and that's why we love him.
He's relatively original in the terms of his chaos. It doesn't make sense half the time, but he is fairly original. Um,
Now, I think that it was at least in character for Vale because I feel that
oh yeah, no,
the
no,
way he was playing
that's what I'm saying.
Vale,
I'm
yeah,
saying that
yeah,
Vale
that's what I'm
was
saying,
always a
yeah.
cocky character, but it also made sense because he was like, "Oh, this thing doesn't hurt me. I'm just gonna do this, and it doesn't matter if I get sucked up because it won't damage me." Oh, my portal went, "Ugh," and then not realizing that it deals the damage to him. Then yeah, is that hilarious sort of tragedy of like lack of
Yeah.
knowledge. Like ignorance is not always bliss. Um, but it's funny because now that we're up to a certain point, we've now introduced a lot of different uh parts to the story. We've actually got a new load of set pieces. You guys are now about to go to the prison, the big prison in the other on the other side of the country, known as the Garrison's Zeta Max prison, where it houses all of the biggest, baddest villains and evildoers and power users and basically people of the highest level of danger. And you've been told a few different bits and pieces about it. The fact that it has 3 floors. Each floor, as it goes down further and further, it's all about the more and more dangerous people. You've also, had a few hours to sort of like do stuff, and I know that like a lot of it has been wasted on characters trying to do things that haven't worked out for them. But
Yeah, I have a headcanon for that though. I have a headcanon for why it didn't work.
I
Because
I was actually going to say there's also uh, a thing that your characters are obviously fairly new to each other because of a few weeks ago when Sam and Graham's character were taken away. You now have new characters. You have Sam and Graham's new characters, Lucas and Leah. But you also have Ben, who isn't able to do these sessions for the next few months. His character is actually leaving the team, so you guys actually now have 2 new teammates and 1 less old teammate. So you're still at 5, but you've now got 2 new dynamics and you've lost 1. And that's gonna. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? How do you think that's gonna go?
I think it's very. I mean, this is the thing. It's just because I do love the new characters. By the way, I do love Lucas and
Oh yeah,
Leia,
yeah.
and yeah, I do love. I mean, just the dynamic that Leia and Toxie have is just developing is very funny. But it is kind of like God. Toxie is going through a lot at the moment because Toxie was mad at Talos for like putting them into this situation. That's like of not the thing, just utter chaos instantly and everything changing in a day. Like it was going to be like on their own terms and having to do other things. And again, just kind of looking out for number one, whereas like Talos has just put just made Toxie famous without their consent, and it's like this huge thing. And now we've got another another shake up with new people coming in, new friends to to manage, and the designated babysitter of the group, Blitzkinen, going away. And it's like I think that what Toxie's going through right now is sort of like I do not want to be the responsible one, and it's like Toxie is like the only one left that's even vaguely responsible. I think, and that's saying something because Toxie isn't responsible at all. They shouldn't be responsible for things.
No,
And it's
yeah.
like, yeah. And Talos is like kind of like the most powerful one, so therefore he is sort of the de facto leader. And Toxie is not happy with that either. It's like it was just sort of like, well, they Toxie and Vale, they weren't exactly friends, but they were colleagues. And it's like, well, they knew the dynamic there and they knew not to like, screw each other over because they
They
tried
had an
doing that
equal
and it
partnership,
failed.
regardless of what their abilities were, how powerful they were, how much knowledge they
Exactly.
had. They both were of equal standing because of the stuff that had happened in their past. Whereas Talos is a completely new factor who, each and every time that they see him do anything, he becomes more and more of a rogue character, a wild card, or even a powerhouse. And each time, more and more is being added to his arsenal of power, either because his damage output increases or he suddenly comes up with a new technique or a new way to use a previously established technique, and it becomes more and more dangerous. Whereas everyone roughly stays the same, even if they do get more powerful, they don't suddenly jump to a new ability where it completely changes the very fabric of combat or even the way that you would even look at each other. So it is that thing of Talos is the ever changing dynamic, and he doesn't ever seem to try and take the leader role. He will happily listen to most of the things that you say. It's just that if he doesn't like it, it's very difficult to know whether or not he'll go off on his own or he'll actually stay with the rest of you. Um,
It's exactly the same. It's just the wild card element of it. It's just the utter randomness of it. It's like, all right, here's a perfectly okay plan, and then Talos just goes, "I have an idea," and just enacts it without anyone saying. Just like the whole museum thing, that was supposed to be like, a fun little side mission, and it turned out to change everyone's. And it's
yes.
just, you, it's so hard to have someone like that on a team anyway. And it's like, it is sort of like, I yeah. I mean, it's partly, sort of like what the hell, But it's like I'm playing it as Toxie right now. Of like Toxie, is sarcastic about it, and just like is taking advantage of Talos not having many social skills to sort of like, tell Talos off or like, maybe just like get them out of the firing line for Talos. But there is that thing in the back of everyone's mind, and especially Toxie's of like, he could destroy me with a thought. I better not piss this guy off. So, looking after number one is just sort of like can just be translated to cowardice in the end because
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
like, yeah, this is like, yeah, I hate you. You're on the list. You're on the list to tell us, but I'm not going to like call you on that list just anytime soon
Well, we already
because
know
you're
quite a lot
scary.
about we already know quite a lot about the fact that Talos is like very much unknowing of his own past, and he is very powerful with his gravity manipulation. But we also know that Toxie is quite decently powered now as well, especially with the new abilities that you have. You have a new strenuous form. But we also know that Bartholomew is not the weak skeletal bard that everyone has been
Mm.
believing for a while. Especially because that he actually won his fight. Um, and I'd actually honestly have stated that the top three most dangerous fighters in your group was actually Talos, you, and then funnily enough, I would have actually said Vale, but obviously Vale was gone, and then we had Leah come back. Weirdly enough, it's still a hard one now because as powerful as Leah is with the amount of damage output she has, Bartholomew still has a lot more going for him. He can make new objects and weapons. He can make instruments. He can make himself bigger, smaller, alter the way that his body is. He can heal himself, and he can regenerate and rejuvenate like body parts. He can do a ton of different things, and on top of this, he has bardic special abilities. He has a bundle of different proficiency techniques which allow him to cause people to fall asleep, cause people to take sonic damage. He can distract people. He can make people better or worse depending on who he's targeting. There's a ton of different things that he can do. And then on top of that, he's also quite a decent fighter when it comes to wielding weapons made out of his own bones. So it is kind of an interesting sort of weird dynamic to suddenly have this character who hasn't really had the chance to do much because everyone else has got better range and abilities than him. But then suddenly he's like, oh, I can make a car, I can make a bike, I can make a plane, I can make a xylophone, a keytar, I can make a sword, I can make an axe, I can make a pick, I can heal. All these different effects and abilities, and it's like he is the ultimate utility fighter in the group. And then
Actually,
you've
that's partly why I love him as well. I love utility characters and I love playing them, so I'm just sort of like, I'm just like, quietly cheerleading Juice to like, go Bartholomew, go.
I'd have to say Juice is probably one of the best players in the session when it comes to patience as well as creativity.
Hmm.
Because a lot of characters and a lot of players will be fairly creative, but they won't have the patience to be like, no, I'll play the long game. Um, and again, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's every player's behavior that makes them unique, and it's every character's uniqueness that makes the story what it is. Um, and to build characters that are like, oh, I'm just going to be the most powerful, I'm going to do the most damage, I'm going to be the most defensive, I'm going to be the most utility. Even if you are trying to min-max what you can do or what you already are able to do, um, you still are unique in the fact that you might be able to do a damage type that no one else can. Even if you could do the same exact abilities that Talos could, you playing as Toxie have something that he doesn't. You have poison damage. You have special poisonous effects. You can control things with acid in them. And we see that now with Leah and Lucas, where we have a luck child or a fortune child who has the ability to be able to make luck bend to the way that he wants. And at the same time, you see Leah, who is just this big powerhouse, and there's nothing else really much going for her. She can absorb and is immune to poison, and all of the poison damage that she absorbs can then be used as a stockpile to further empower something that she can do. She can then use an ability to heal anyone who is affected, anyone who has animite in their body, so in other words, super beings or anthropials or other beings of her kind, but no humans or base creatures that have not been mutated or evolved thanks to this radiation. And the final ability is actually using and harnessing that energy, that radiation, that animite damage as a weapon to deal, attack types. And it is not only her greatest power, but also her greatest weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that goes, and obviously, seeing how Lucas develops. We've seen a lot more roleplay stuff from Lucas than we have almost any other character as of late. But one particular thing that actually does concern me is, and this has nothing to do with anything, but I realised that like Sam had said that he put his character's dex at 2, and yet he's a tailor. Or should I say, and yet Leah is a tailor. So I might very well have something for that, where every time that she makes something, I make her roll fortitude. And if she fails, then she like cuts herself, or she like stitches something to her fingers, because she's supposed to be very clumsy.
Ah, yeah. Oh, I see. I see. Yeah. And that's
Because
actually
that
that's so funny because she's actually made something of it. I don't know if this went on the stream, but she did actually made me like a little thing to keep my little vials of poisons in.
yes, a
It's a
little
knitted
woolen
bandolier.
bandolier.
I like, yeah, which is just so, again, I freaking love Leah. This is just ridiculous, but it's like, just like the idea of like knitting and she still stabs herself with needles, and it's like, I made this for you. It's like,
Blood
I
covered.
don't think you should be around. You should be. It's just, I just love the contradiction of Leah because she's this giant powerhouse, probably like could kill us all, with her incredible, with her incredible animite beams, and yet she shouldn't be around sharp objects because she's so clumsy and she's so naive and like just like does the wrong thing constantly, like socially. But it like, yeah, I love it. I love Leah. I love Leah. Goodbye, Vale. I did a meme at one time, maybe put it up, where it's like it's the Simpsons meme of like, you know, Vale is a sheep and Leia is the little Lanniman just pushing Vale out of the way in front of Leah. That's pretty much how I feel about. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry, Sam, but that is how I feel about Leah.
I think it's also that new character smell is like always
Yeah.
that thing of like, oh well, we've got a new character, let's see how well they sort of add to the mesh. And obviously everything's better in retrospect, because then you can build a character that might be better in this or that or the other way. And obviously Sam saying, when they first brought this idea to me, they were like, oh, I want the ability to be immune to poison, so that then I can stockpile that with Toxie. I was like, okay, why don't we have it that there's a reason as to why you want to join their crew, because that your power is this way. And then Sam further explored it by saying, what if I'm like a massive fan of Toxie? And I just love that idea, that entire concept of like, we've never had a character that is literally a fanatic for another character before. And I just love that concept.
It's every single time it's gold, I just like, again, it's like one of I don't know, it all started with Coin's game, I think, where like, well, I've said this before, like he has like, three characters that he keeps playing over and over again. There's like there's chaotic idiot, Batman, or the super simp, which is like it all kind of started like we could just having a joke and stuff of playing a fanatic and stuff because it's like he's just I don't know, he's just very good at it. And it just makes so much natural sense that, this type of character who has poison stockpile and poison immunity would be a fan of Toxie, and also but just like there's this really awkward sort of camaraderie, but also like just an unhealth going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like, yeah, it's sort of Harley and Joker relationship, but it's like emotional abuse rather than just emotional and physical.
Well, as I said, it's more like it's less probably like emotional or verbal abuse, more like it's like abusing the trust. It's
Yeah.
an abuse of trust, which is still a form of abuse, but it is less like I am trying to hurt you. It's more just this will work in my favor, which again is also
Yeah,
just like the
absolutely.
Harley and Joker one, because it's like, oh, she loves and trusts him, and he abuses that all the time. He always uses that to the best of his effect, because it's just another patsy for him to just throw into the machine and then just run away, and he's always got her as a scapegoat. And obviously, this kind of relationship might very well unveil into something very sinister,
Yeah, I'm
based on Toxie's
again, this
personality.
is like I mean, this is the thing because it's just like I guess new character smell, I suppose. It's just opened up a lot of possibilities. Like with Vale, it's like Toxie and Vale's story, and I guess Toxie, Vale, and Bartholomew, to an extent. I don't know if any of the viewers know this, but like they were rival gang leaders and drug dealers, and they basically just decimated each other's gangs in order to just war. And then just after that, after they realized that, well, neither of us are going to win because we are so evenly matched, or there's just too many of them. It would be just so much easier to work together rather than rather than do it. It's like their whole story is in the background now. That's done. That's been sorted. Whereas this relationship, this story has just begun, and it's just that's I think why I'm so excited about it. It's just there's so many possibilities opened up from this.
Well, no, I mean, I was gonna say, like, because of that, like
Yeah,
it does create an interesting dynamic. It's too bad that all of those characters are now gone, and it's just Bartholomew and
yeah.
Toxie. I will say though, I was actually going to say something that has actually come up a couple of times in conversation, and I thought it might be good for me to get this out there, uh, to also not only sort of bring the discussion of the campaign to a close for now, but also then to move on to our next part. Actually, we really want to
Mhm.
sort of ask you some questions about. But beforehand, I'll just say this. This campaign was specifically designed before I threw everyone out to have a certain amount of plot missions and then a finale that would either be an arc ending moment or a campaign ending moment. And that that specific distinction between those things is not my decision to make. It is the players, because at the end of it, I will then say, and that brings an end to this arc. I will then say, would you like this to be the end of the campaign, or would you like to continue with the current characters you have? Because we'll still be doing the streams for new campaigns to again showcase this game, as we are not only playtesting it, but also when we eventually release it. So, with those parts in mind, it is very important for us to be able to continue on with at least the stream testing. And the villain campaign, it will either be a decision of we'll leave it and we'll go to a new one, or we would very much like to stay on this campaign, and therefore that means that this arc will be over and they can then choose what they would like to do next. They will either get to have the choice of stay here and do other stuff, side stuff, until they find some kind of big plot, or they get to go to another place in the world entirely, for whatever particular reason. And they either get to choose it, or they just go because we want to go there and we want to see what it's like. or because we want to go there and we want to take it over because we're like the biggest, baddest villains in this town that we've just now come to. So that's the idea. I do, however, have an idea for another campaign setting for the stream campaign, and it will focus heavily on some stuff that we've sort of lightly touched on over the last few sessions. And I'll probably bring it up in a couple of minutes. But I just actually wanted to hear, Alex, do you think that that's a good idea to have the sort of arc end with you guys with that option, or do you
I
think
think
that should end in general?
I don't know because it's difficult really because like I do want to keep playing Toxie, but it's like I really do want to see what Toxie is in other environments as well. I mean, when I get attached to characters, it's like, yeah, I wanna play them forever, and I'm not bored of Toxie yet. And I would just love it to like, I mean, the one idea that I had if we people did decide to like go ahead and like keep going and go to different countries, is that we just take over a place. Like we just like, it could even be sort of like, there's already a villain ruling it, and we're like, oh yeah, they're the liberators, and we're like, um, sure, yeah, now get to work. It'd be that kind of dynamic that we have in the future. I'd just love to see that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one in the group that would feel the same way about that. Because yeah, I do think things have to end. Like it has a sort of like there's a sort of beauty close. I don't want it to go on too long, but at the same time, I don't want to put Toxie down just yet.
No, I think that's a fair enough sort of sentiment to have. I
Mhm.
do think that there is such a thing as um, going on too long. Uh, but I feel like that time frame it varies. Like you could have a
Mhm.
campaign that goes on for 4 to 5 years and people really enjoy it and they really love it, and the DM is still fresh with ideas and the players are all still enjoying themselves. And it could then end, and that's that. Or you could have a campaign that only lasts about 4 weeks. You're doing it once every week, and you come to the end, and it's just like, okay, this has gone on long enough, sort of thing. It really depends how fast the sessions go through, how much of the story that you wanted them to dive into, or even just how much is being explored by the characters. I feel like when you guys come up with different ideas for different things to do, like for instance the heists, um, like when you guys came up with the whole museum thing, I thought this campaign could last for a long time and show off a multitude of different possibilities.
Well, about that.
And then after this last session, I sort of felt the opposite, where I felt this campaign doesn't necessarily need to end, but I do feel like there is going to be a certain level of finite possibilities, because I feel like a lot of the characters will want, a lot of the players will want to play as different characters. I don't know. I haven't personally asked every single person, and again, there's two players that have now just made new characters, so I don't know. It could go on for longer because of the choices that everyone makes, or it could cease by the end of the final part of the arc. Or
It is kind of sad as well because we just had this running gag when Sam was playing Veil that somehow we'd make it to the moon and take our villainy to the stars.
Well, my final question, which is anyone who's watching this who might very well be part of the villain campaign, do let me know if you feel like you'd want to continue on after the arc ends, or you'd want to go on. Um, that that's a question, or maybe you can't answer that, but maybe the very least, I'd like to know if after this, if it did end, uh, regardless of the arc, or being it that it's the campaign ends and we say that we're going to move on to another one, would you stay on for another campaign, uh, for the next set of the dev plays? That is a question for all of my players.
Mm, get cracking.
But yeah, I
Come on, time's a ticking.
it's I asked that question mostly because I very rarely get burnout. My biggest burnout is from schedule mishaps and cancellations. but it's also from the stress of not knowing whether or not a player is or isn't going to stay in, nearing the edge of a certain very pivotal moment or in between two campaigns. Because making a new campaign is always very nerve-wracking, because you don't know how many people are actually going to be in it until maybe a week or even the day on the session. And you also don't know how many people will stay on for a certain amount of time, which is always quite difficult, because, scheduling and stuff like that is always, it's always tricky. My very least hope is that we either have all of the players that we have, or at most we don't lose any more than one person so far. But if there are any more people out there, because I know that we have a couple of new patrons who would love to try and join, but they have to figure out when they can do it. I would love to have them added to the games, and perhaps doing the stream sessions, and if not, doing the other sessions that we have at the moment. But yeah, I'd really love to see that happen. I'd really love to see it continue. Going forward, with future possibilities.
Oh yeah, this is what I came here for.
The next campaign that I have for an idea is, obviously, as I said, the arc will continue. The campaign will continue with a new arc where the characters will leave and go somewhere else. But the next campaign, if that doesn't happen, is actually going to be a world tournament festival, similar to the Olympics, where every country in the world has people from all across the globe going to this special festival, and it's like a survival of the fittest tournament, and it's broken up into multiple stages. Best part about this is the tournament takes multiple days, if not a couple of weeks, in the game's world. Because of this, the whole campaign is set in a tournament setting, and each separate round and segment is a new style and play on that sort of play style. So it doesn't necessarily mean to be like, the first one will be a battle royale, the next one might be team battles, the next one might be one-on-ones, the finals might be tag teams, or the opposite way around. There might even be different things where it's like, you have to fight with a weapon even if you're not good with one, or your powers are dampened every so many minutes in this weird realm. Each different location as well, because there will be one in like a large place, and then maybe you'll be placed in different locations. For instance, you're now sent to this country for its battleground, now you're sent to this country for this battleground, and so on and so forth. And it's pretty much just like the big games of beta. I still have yet to call it anything other than the Omega games, or the pretty much the festival of the Omegans, which is pretty much the concept.
The Olympics. The Olympics. No.
No. Either way, but basically the idea is pretty much based on that concept. A large amount of games set with, the concepts of fighting for survival, beating your opponents to win, and there is a level of sort of almost game show about it. But there is this thing where characters can live or die, and so it's always that thing of like, there is still a possibility of your characters killing or being killed. Not that you need to, but that option is there. And I was thinking of doing it where it's actually a lower level campaign, maybe about either between 0 to 5, so that then you guys really fully feel your characters grow throughout that campaign. And
I like that.
You're in close proximity to each other a lot of the time, strategizing how to win, how to stay away from enemies, how to beat enemies, how to survive, how to continuously grow together. And it would very much be set in the first part as I said, a battle royale. Let's put it this way: this is how large of a scale it will be. It will be over the span of 2 in-game days. So even if you play the first session, you might not be anywhere near the first end of the first day. So it's literally going to be this thing where you'll have to rest and recover. You'll have to maybe find something that might heal you. You might even have to have someone on your team who can make healing stuff, or even have healing powers. Or you might just have to hope and pray that you guys don't get that heavily damaged in the fight. Or build a character that is able to take a good set of damage before going down. but the plan is to make fighters, hunters, and survivalists out of this. You can make any build that you want. Just I'm going to specifically ask everyone to at least have 1 point, one level in at least one combat-based trade, either a weapon proficiency, hand-to-hand combat, martial arts. That's basically what I'm going to be asking people to do, and no weapons are going to be off limits, because it is basically like this huge game of like who wins and who loses, the ultimate fighters, the ultimate champions, and at the end, the winners or the winning team, depending on if you were a team when you started / finished, however many points you gained throughout the time that you played these games, at the end, if you're the winning team or the winner, those points are then translated as a prize money, and then you're given basically the title of the champion of that year, which is an accolade that can never be taken away from you. Because even if you go back the next year and you try and fight and you lose, that does not mean that you were not the champion of, like, say for instance, the year 2020. It's just that you're not the champion of year 2021. So it's kind of that thing of like doing that sort of style. You build up, you level up, you grow, and you grow together as a team. And I'm gonna have it that none of your characters know each other, but you've sort of like said like, look, why don't we just be a part of a team? You guys are the closest people to us, and we only have a few minutes left. We didn't get picked by our teams, or we didn't get picked by other people from our locations or countries or wherever we're from. Why don't we just choose each other? We have a better chance of survival together. And
I like
that's
that.
the
I
idea.
have a few ideas for that. I mean, because I was going to say, I'm surprised it's that and not the, My Hero Husconia thing, which we've been talking about for a while, but
See, I
yeah.
really liked the idea of it, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot of things that I really felt that I could do with this, like, world-traveling tournament Olympic Games, where it could
Yeah, that's true.
really feel like you guys actually have not only freedom, but also it's almost, I guess you could say, closed freedom. Like, you guys can do whatever you want and say however you want to be, or, like, play alongside your teammates however you want to play, but it's like you can't leave the tournament because you have chosen this of your own free will. You have come here because that you wanted to win, or you wanted to earn money, or you at least just wanted to survive. So you can't just like, oh, I'm just gonna leave the tournament or anything like that. Like in the villains campaign, you could always have just run away or something. Whereas in this, it's like you can run away from your opponents in the obvious ones, like for instance the survivals and the battle royales. You couldn't ever run away and leave the tournament because the whole point of your character being there is because they wanted to be here. So
I have two characters that would, in my mind, that would be perfect for this.
go ahead.
Actually, I'm just saying, that, well, there's two things I would argue of like having them in one shots, or if we did it, the My Hero Husconia thing. Like I wanted to play Husk again, where I could get the free super stats. That is possible with certain Husks. You can get super dex, super intelligence, and super wisdom
Yes.
would be my three main things. And like their whole character thing, I think I described this to you like off stream. Like their whole motivation for like joining up with this team, and I guess in the terms of the Olympics, was to get free healthcare and basically just live a comfortable life afterwards. Like that would be their only motivation. It's sort of like because it's like life is pretty sucky, especially in Husconia. Like you have canonically they don't have healthcare, so you have to kind of free healthcare, so you have to like earn it in some way, or pray that you find a healer. So it's like that would be their whole thing is like they're in it, and because of their super intelligence and super wisdom, they realize, hey, this is the quickest and easiest way for me to get that. So naturally, I should tell. Again, they could have this whole thing of like, well, naturally, this is the obvious decision. We have to team up because we don't have we have like a 0.0000009% chance of making it otherwise.
Okay. I actually quite like that.
Yeah.
What was your other idea?
Well, my other idea is basically like a rip-off of the movie Us, which I love the character and I love doing the voice of Red, who is the main antagonist in the film. And it's like just like I'll try and do it. It's like he has a really raspy voice, and she's so scary. just really like, yeah, if I was going to do a voice again, I'd have to practice a bit more. But basically, the whole idea about her was that she has like, uh, that my spin on the character would be that she has like weapons physiology, but she has like a special ability that like she could like dance on her knife legs. There's a voice like a ballerina who can literally dance on knife's edges. Like she
Mm-hmm.
just straps herself into these knife edges and able to like do these beautiful dances. My idea was that she was like an experiment gone horribly wrong, where she was originally supposed to be like this, you know, brilliant, warrior and stuff, but she didn't want to do that. So instead she became a dancer. And it's sort of like this funny sort of contradiction in her where like she's, sounds like a monster, looks like a monster, but is actually just very nice and just wants to live a normal life, but can also deal incredible amounts of damage while dancing. And I just like the idea of like in the background as well, to be a while, because like it's like her story about escaping from this facility is done pretty much. She's just a regular citizen, and she found a nice husband and got some really nice kids who have little scissor fingers. And they're just like, she just wants to live like a normal life, but it's like, she doesn't look it at all, and look or sound it. So it's like, you know, honey, I'm going off to the games. Say, okay, sweetie, good luck. Don't get killed. you know which I just thought that was like a sweet idea. I'll have to practice doing the red voice more. If everyone if you have Netflix, watch Us on Netflix, because it is a very good movie, and also you can see what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to imitate.
I might actually give it a look. I was going to
Yeah.
say I like either of those. To be fair, I like either of them. I've actually also done something for the next lot, which is if people are trying to play as superhumans or anomalies, I have two lists. A list of 36 powers that have been fully finished, and I just want to make sure that they're absolutely definitely finished. So basically, that list, if a person is going to play as a superhuman, they have to pick one of the powers from that one. If they want to play as an anomaly, they can then pick one from there and then one from the rest of the 28 that haven't been finished yet, because I'd like to be
Ah.
pressured into finishing it faster, and sort of going back and forth and sort of building it with the other people, the players. If an anomaly, however, if a person who is an anomaly wants to play as an anomaly with two powers from the 28, they're absolutely allowed to do that, but not two from the 36, because again, they're already finished. The very last things that we'd be doing, if anything, is putting finishing touches on. However, if anyone else wants to play as any of the other races, they're absolutely free to do so, with practically absolute freedom as to what powers that they're allowed to use, because there's always stuff that we need to check and learn from. So either one I don't see a problem with, and no, I very much look forward to sort of seeing the way that you build those two characters, whichever one that you do. I've got
I am very
an
excited.
idea as well, which is the idea of having something where someone can have a unique attribute based on the location that they come from. Either well, basically like some kind of like either signature or something like that, where it's basically they get one special effect. And I did have the idea of like Huskonian, because they come from a place that's very cold. They have like a small cold resistance, but then they have like a small fire weakness or something. Or, for instance, like if you come from the desert country of Emjanalinia, it's the complete opposite. You're more susceptible to the cold, but you're less susceptible to heat. From I don't know, say for instance from Eden, you might have a specific keen capability or keen eye for certain things to do with animite or animatology. But if you're from Matrata, the City of Angels, and you're an emitter type, then you can get the special ability of wings, where whatever power or element that you generate, you can create wings that grant you a basic flight. All sorts of different stuff like that. For instance, there will be one from each different place and location. just to sort of like help everyone have that. But the bonuses will specifically be set based on what kind of character you are. So it would be more like me going back and forth with that person. Because obviously, if you come from a Trata or Eden and you don't have a power that is specifically an emitter, then obviously there will be this thing of like going back and forth and trying to figure out what would best suit that person's character for their characteristics. And the same thing for like if a character had a power that specifically grants them a weakness to the cold, then figuring out something from there. But yeah, either way, it's all those different kind of things. To sort of really sort of give it this feeling that everyone has this special way of sort of diving deep into the whole aspect of their backstory, giving them a little bit of an extra advantage. But I'm still on the fence about that one, because again, it's always a bit of a tricky one, because no matter what special advantage they'll get, there's obviously going to be a disadvantage that comes with it. It just basically makes them slightly unique to the usual characters that are being made, to give them sort of a home field advantage if they ever end up in their home field. Because again, it will be like a world touring place where like they have different locations that you'll be sent to at the end of the first round. So either way, we'll hopefully see more from it. And we'll hopefully go into it. But if not, I would very much like to see what you guys get up to as the villain's story progresses. As Sunday, you will be breaking into a prison and hopefully trying to get the professor known as Hermaeus to help you with reverse engineering the Animon battery that can apparently power an entire city.
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Alex, for joining me today. Actually, like this we didn't have Sam today because he's in Spain. So we decided to do another discussion so that we didn't leave him out of the Power podcast.
Oh, just so he doesn't feel left out, I'm just going to fill in for him in the last 5 seconds, right? Spider-Man, the Shadow.
Northern Irish, you missed it.
see you in the future. There we go. That's the Sam portion.
That was scary. How uncanny that was. It was almost like as if he was here.
Oh my god. Yeah, I know. I've been working on it. You know, I'm an actor. You know.
Don't worry, I'm an actor. Well, thank you very much for coming along. And thank you very much for any of you who are listening. Again, if anyone who is part of the blah 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 blah, can't remember the words. There we go. If any of you were part of the dev plays and are somehow listening to this for some reason, thank you ever so much for joining us. It is a privilege to have you as my players and my playtesters, and I would really like to see you at the end of this campaign, either joining us for the next one, or perhaps continuing with the previous one if you guys wish to go on for another arc. But thank you very much to everyone who has been a part of all of these campaigns. Alex, Graham, Juice, Ben, Sam, Bill, Kane, and of course, myself. No.
Yeah, but a special thank you to myself.
To me. But also Siobhan. She puts up with a lot when I do this stuff, so thank you to Siobhan as well. Thank you very much for those who listen and those who share our videos. We appreciate you. We may be small in number for now, but who knows? Maybe one day we'll have more. Thank you very much for listening.
Gonna take it to the moon.
And with that, have a wonderful night.
Bye.